Hello guys, welcome back. Now today, it's going to be a little bit of a different video, but today I'm going to be talking about and addressing how exactly and why I became a hockey fan. Now, I was a baseball fan first. Baseball was my favorite sport. Basically, that was my main sport for a long, long time, and now hockey has overtaken that. But baseball is still my second favorite sport. I don't know, I didn't necessarily like watching it, but at first, baseball was my favorite sport, and it was like that for a long, long time. And I did not get into hockey until a couple of years ago, actually. And it took a long, long time for me to even consider the NHL to be even watchable. I didn't watch it at all. I really didn't have too much hockey knowledge until like 2014. And my dad's from Calgary, and I lived there for like 1 year when I was 5. I mean, we've been going all over the place, but Texas we've lived in for about 10 years collectively now. I was born in Texas, we moved a lot, and then now we're in Texas, and we've been in Texas for a long, long time. Now, my dad's from Calgary. He's been a hockey fan. He was a hockey fan for a long time. He wasn't necessarily into it, and I think the reason that I wasn't necessarily into it was because he didn't really care too much about hockey when he was in his adult life, but when he was a kid, I knew that he was really into hockey then. Of course, he was in right at those peak years where Calgary won the cup. I think it was in '89. He would have been like 9 or 10 at that time. And when he was a hockey fan, that was basically the best time. The Calgary Flames won the cup. You know, it was an exciting time for them. And of course, that fueled his fire for being a hockey fan. So how exactly did I get into hockey? Well, let's get into that now. My grandfather, who also lives in Calgary, decided to come down here for a couple of weeks. I mean, we haven't seen him down here, at least, in a few years, so that was fun to see. He came down here, and of course, he is a lot more knowledgeable at the NHL than I did. And he was I think he was in one of our TVs, trying to see what hockey was on, and he ended up going on Dallas Stars. Now, this was in the 15-16 season, you know, the season where the Stars got 109 points, whatever it was. That was one of the first games, I think, of the season. Might have been even game number 1. It was something around the first couple of games in that season. And he flipped it on, and he invited me to watch it. I'm like, okay, I mean, I like the sport of hockey as a whole, but I never really watched hockey really ever. So that was pretty much one of my first games actually watching hockey. Now, as a child, my family would go to a lot of college games and stuff like that, so that was pretty much my only experience actually watching hockey live as well. But my grandfather put that on the TV, and I started watching that, and it was a really good game. I think the Stars dominated. I can't remember who it was against. I actually think it was against the Flames, believe it or not. I think it was against the Flames, something like that. Although I do believe it was against the Flames, and it was a good game. I think the Stars dominated in the game. I could be wrong. I don't have a great memory about it. But I think the Stars did end up winning. Of course, I started to watch that a lot more as the games went on for the Stars, and it definitely helped that the Stars were having one of the best seasons of the franchise, and I just kept watching because they were doing good, and I kept watching, and the interest started to grow and grow more throughout the season went on, and I started to become a bigger hockey fan. Now, at that time, I think baseball was still my favorite sport at the time, and hockey hasn't overtaken baseball as my favorite sport since probably like a year and a half ago, so still fairly recently hockey switched to my favorite sport, but back then, I was kind of dwindling. Like, baseball is just my favorite sport, you know, with the Rangers pretty much choking and all of that, which I won't get into today, but, baseball was kind of dwindling then. I had a couple of seasons where I didn't really care about the Rangers too much. I was playing baseball at least for a few years. That was pretty successful. I didn't do all that well, but it was fun to me. Playing the game, baseball was a lot more fun than watching it, in my opinion. And just as hockey, for baseball, for me, was dwindling, hockey started to rise, and I think that was a good time for the Stars to be really good. The Rangers were dwindling, the Mavericks weren't doing that great at the time, and the Cowboys were still mediocre. So I think that the Stars having that great season really fueled a lot of fans there, and of course, it really helped me in becoming a hockey fan. Now, I wouldn't call myself a casual hockey fan at that time. I was still watching almost every single game once that fire started to build up in me as a hockey fan. But I didn't really know much about the Stellar Cup, all of the, in-depth stuff at that time. I didn't really know too much about it until about last season. So pretty much I was a casual-ish fan at that point, but I still was watching almost every single game. Of course, the Stars that season went to round 2 and lost against the Blues in a heartbreaker. I wasn't even home when that Game 7 happened. I come home, and the Blues were up something like 4-0 in the first period or something like that, and I was just heartbroken. That was terrible. I wasn't even home. I was somewhere else. But just going back home, the Stars were already down 4-0. It was just a terrible experience that night. But it was a heartbreaker. But the Stars having that great season, it fueled me into a hockey fan. Of course, I got a lot more into it in the offseason as well. I learned a lot about the sports. I started to learn a lot about the history and all the rules and stuff like that. I didn't really get offside or icing until last season. That's how much of I wouldn't say I was a casual fan. I was just watching it for the fun. But again, I was still watching every game. I was just a casual fan, if you want to call it that. And a big thing that pulled me into hockey in that season, especially, is just because the Stars were fun to watch. In that season, it doesn't really matter that they were a fantastic record. They were just fun to watch in general. High offense, high speed. It was a fantastic team, and they were definitely fun to watch. And I think that's why. That's a big reason to why I started to watch them and started to love them. Now, last season, the season that was kind of just a mediocre one, I stuck with the team. Was not fun to watch, not nearly as much fun to watch as the 15-16 season. I kept with the team, though. I still went through it, and I still had them as my favorite team. I still watched hockey, and I definitely watched a lot of the playoffs, too. That was a good playoffs to watch, and it was fun, but I still kept with the team. I didn't get discouraged because of that season. I still kept with the team, thankfully, because if I didn't, I don't know where I'd be, but it was a tough season just to watch overall. There's a lot of struggles in that season, and I'm kind of surprised looking back on it and why I stayed so loyal of that team just with that season alone. And then here we are today, just a few months ago, started covering hockey on the channel, and here we are today. And I'm not going to go into the start season right now. You can go watch the DSLRs for that, but we go back to this season compared to last, and how even in this short span of time, in this hockey, fandom, I'm still with it, and I'm still going strong with it. I know, compared to a lot of other people, I'm still a really, really new hockey fan. But I'm enjoying it. I just love the sports, and I love covering it as well to you guys. I just wanted to share my story of how I became a hockey fan, how I became a Stars fan, and how I'm covering this on YouTube as well, and just how it's basically all started. So that's going to, guys. Like, subscribe, and ring that bell if you haven't. Comment down below what your story is on how you became a hockey fan. I'd love to see it. And I'll see you guys later. Goodbye.